honor to have as our guest Mr. Haim Bresheeth, who is a well-known academic, cinema director, and right now he's teaching at SOAS, who is a bestseller writer of books about Holocaust, about the IDF. We will discuss about this later. So welcome. It's an honor for us to talk with you. There are so many things. I don't know from where can we start. Let's start from the last thing, which is the CENTCOM blockade of the Hormuz Strait. It is a new decision by the USA that causes new troubles, probably. They want to block the Iranian ports. So after the first talks in Islamabad, this was the first result. Are you optimistic that the USA and the Iranians will reach finally an agreement or not? And what about the stance of Israel, which seems that does not agree with the procedure of negotiations and talks?
There's no way in which this will lead to an agreement between the two sides. They are totally cancelling each other's aims and objectives. Negotiation is when we talk to someone who doesn't agree with us, and we know that, and they know that, and we find a way which both sides can live with. And of course, normally negotiations mean that the stronger side is dictating. Now, the United States behaves as if it is the stronger side who won the war, and therefore they can dictate the conditions of an agreement. This is just not true. They have not won the war. They have destroyed quite a lot of Iran, but Iran is still there and is still fighting against American imperialism. And it hasn't won. It hasn't won any of its many forever changing objectives for the war, depending on who you ask. So if that's the case, there cannot be an agreement ever unless one of the side changes. For example, the Iranians give up on their independence, give up on their support of Palestine, give up on their control of the Hormuz Straits, give up on their financial interest and on their government, and say to the United States, we'll do what you like. Then there can be an agreement. Also, there can be an agreement if the Americans recognize that they have lost the war, that it was an illegal, idiotic war that they should never have been into, that a person who is insane is leading the United States and they should actually get rid of him, and then make peace with, Putin, with Iran, with the Chinese. That's unlikely. So both of those are as unlikely, and therefore an agreement is not possible. There is something that you should probably also think about, and that is that those wars of the kind that the Americans have started and the Israelis have led them into that trap, those wars have, a dynamic of their own. The wars can always be finished in 5 minutes or 5 days or 5 weeks, but they can always be finished if both sides want them to finish and do what's necessary. For example, in 2022, it was possible to end the war in Ukraine. Both sides have met, both sides, I don't mean the United States, I meant Ukraine and Russia, met in Turkey Both sides had very good reason to end the war. They agreed the terms. And then actually the Prime Minister of Britain, who was not then a Prime Minister, the ex-Prime Minister of Britain, Boris Johnson, acting on a prompt from the United States, made it impossible for Ukraine to accept the deal that they have agreed to before. And so what then starts is a forever war. It goes up, it goes down. One side gets the upper hand, then the other side gets the upper hand, and it can last for 20 or 30 years. Definitely years rather than days or weeks. This is the situation in the Gulf. The Americans cannot break the government that they thought it'll take 4 days, and in 4 days the Israelis promised them everything will be fine. You know, the regime will fall because people will be in the streets, and you know, another color revolution like in Kiev in 2014 that was organized by the CIA. And this didn't work, and it doesn't work now. And then the Israelis told them that in 2 or 3 days' time they can destroy all the missiles, get the nuclear material. I mean, none of this has happened. So, yeah, we have a war for a generation unless there is a change in the United States, because a change in Iran is, you know, I mean, the Iranians will have to give up on everything. So they're not going to do it. The Americans don't have to give up on anything at all. This is not on their doorstep. They have no bloody business for being there in the first place, and they can just take their boats and go back and say, we won, and sign an agreement. They're not going to do it as long as Trump is in the White House.
Yes. So right now we see that Iran can continue the war, something that was a big surprise. Nobody could believe that after the 12 days war of June, they could be in such a position. For how long can really Iran fight? You referred to Ukraine. Ukraine has the support of European countries. Iran is having a support from somebody. We haven't seen that. So for how long can Iran fight, really? And on the other hand, we see that the Iranians are playing very good chess. Can they do a roi mat that cannot be expected by somehow that can be the solution, the final solution, and bring the end of the war? Because we saw that it was kind of mat, the close of the Hormuz Strait. So can we expect a surprise also from the Iranians?
Well, the Iranians surprised those who don't know about the situation. They surprised Mr. Trump. They also surprised Mr. Netanyahu, two people who are not connected to reality and see the world through their own personal, subjective glasses. The rest of us have to look at reality. And anyone that looked at the reality, including myself, said, the Americans cannot win this. Most experts, if not all, told that to the Americans, told that to the Israelis, don't do it. It doesn't matter if you agree with me or not, but you can't win that. And you can't win it because Iran is a country of almost 100 million people. This is not Venezuela, that you can come at night and take the president and play James Bond with it. Iran is not like that. it's not next door to you like Venezuela, and it is actually a country which is about 100 times older than the United States itself. It's a civilization which even Donald Trump recognized when he promised to destroy it altogether. So even someone uncivilized as Trump knows a civilization when he meets it. So Iran was and is a modern country with a very long history, with an identity, and with a mission. Now, you may not agree with Iran's mission. It is an Islamic republic. I'm not a Muslim, and I suspect you are not either. But the point is not whether I'm supporting Iran or disagreeing with it. The point is, do I understand what it's trying to do? I think I'm trying to understand them. And I'm trying to understand them as a human being. And I can see that Iran is a very hard nut to crack. And the Americans cannot see it. I don't mean the American people, I mean the American government. The American government now is the worst government that the United States had in its 260-year history. It is headed by a criminal maniac who is not balanced at all. And many Americans recognize this, and most of them are against the war. So what can Iran do? Iran can continue to stand on its terms, because its terms are correct. Iran has been under the American jackboot since 1953. In 1953, the Americans and the British did a regime change in Iran, replaced an democratically elected government and its head with an undemocratic and basically a terroristic regime headed by the Shah that was never giving the Iranians what they needed. For example, the Shah allowed British Petroleum and the Americans to control the oil. Iran is one of the countries with more oil than any other. And the Iranians have a right to this, like any other country. They never were allowed this right until the revolution. And they're not allowed it since the revolution because of the United States. And of course, Israel and the other friends of the United States who partake in the crime. So the idea that Iran should give up the only hope it has for a future of freedom and equality in order to satisfy a maniac in Washington is just not on. They're not going to do it. They're not going to commit suicide. And I don't think that the Iranians are doing something silly. They're doing the only thing they can. The Americans are not doing the only thing they can. They are doing the thing that they cannot do. And that's the difference. So I don't think the Iranians are like Trump. Trump produces surprises every few hours. Today he said he's going to destroy Iran and push it into the Stone Age. And in the evening, he says, peace, prosperity, everything is fine. I've resolved it like I've resolved the war between Armenia and Azerbaijan. No, he said, of course, Albania. Yeah. So he resolved a war that didn't exist between Albania and Azerbaijan. And he has now also resolved the war with Iran. for half an hour at least, as long as he can believe in the nonsense that he says. So the Iranians are not producing surprises. It's no surprise that they have blocked the Straits. The Straits were never blocked. The Iranians could do it at any point in time. They're not that way inclined. They don't need that. They're not looking for war. Iran is not like the United States. Iran has never attacked another country unprovoked. Iran did not attack any of its neighbors. The United States has attacked most countries in the world. So we're not talking about similar entities, similar projects. We're talking about a mad empire that belongs actually in the Stone Age, you know, the kind of, I have a bigger stick than you, and I'm going to finish you, and I'm going to,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
break your head with my stick. And that's America.
So
Iran is a modern country, despite the fact that it's Islamic. Its science is very advanced. Its military equipment is more advanced than the United States. Surprisingly, they haven't managed to actually oppose efficiently either the Israelis or the Americans the supersonic missiles from Iran. They run out of intercepts. They are actually hopelessly stuck. Now, they can recognize this, but they won't. And the Iranians recognize that they have the upper hand and they can go on for a long time. Why? And I'll end with this. This is an asymmetrical conflict. It's an asymmetrical war. The first world against the third world. Now, the first world has trillions they can spend, and therefore everything that they do is very expensive. The Iranians don't have that. They are a third world country, an advanced one, but a third world country. They haven't got through.
Yes, sorry for that. Yes.
So basically, they have to build very cheap missiles. And they managed to do it, which is quite an achievement. And when one of the missiles, say one that costs $100,000, is arriving about Tel Aviv, the Israelis are using 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 missiles that cost about 10 million each. This tells you that they've already lost the conflict. If in order to shoot down $100,000, they are using 30 or 40 million dollars, of course, Iran can go on, but they can't go on because they're using something like 100 times more expensive. And even the first world cannot afford a war on those terms. So when you ask what surprise Iran can jump on the Americans, they don't need surprises. They need to stand firm and to continue doing what they're doing. And they already won if they exist against the Americans. The American already lost because they cannot do anything that they told us that they are going to do. They told us that they are going to knock Iran back into the Stone Ages. They obviously haven't done that, and I hope they never do it for their own sake, not just for the Iranians, for all of us. The Americans can do one thing that Iran cannot do and wouldn't do, and they can bring us all to a world war which is nuclear and total destruction for everyone on this planet. Yes, the Americans and the Israelis can do that. And you know what? I think they're likely to do that. The Iranians would not dream of doing this.
So anyway, even if the United States sit to the table of negotiations, because we expect that to happen again in a second circle in Islamabad, the Israelis don't seem that they want the war with Iran to end. which is the real goal of Netanyahu at this point. We saw him while the negotiations were on in Islamabad between USA and Iran to continue to attack to Lebanon, despite it was they had decided to stop everything in the front also of Lebanon, and despite the arrangement with the Americans and the Iranians, he continued to strike against Lebanon, which means that he didn't want any negotiations to go on and to have a good end. Why? Which is the real goal of Netanyahu and Israel right now at the fronts of Iran, of Lebanon, and also Gaza and West End, which are two fronts that we have forgotten totally lately.
Well, Netanyahu is the head of a state which is a chaos engine. That's the way to understand Israel. Israel is the chaos engine of the Middle East serving the West. The West, headed by the United States, needs a chaos engine because it is in decline. It's in very severe decline. There is no better sign of the decline of the United States than looking at the man sitting in the White House. No normal country, or even an empire like the United States, could have a maniacal, tyrannical, childish maniac at the helm, leading it for the second time. Yeah, not for the first time, for the second time. 350 million Americans went to the elections and chose a maniac. This is the sign of the decline of the West. It's very, very clear decline. The Americans have 1,000 military bases around the globe, but they actually cannot win any conflict that they start. They can hijack a president from Venezuela. They can bomb Greenland and take it over, or even take it over without bombing. They can do the same to the Panama Canal. But actually, when there is a proper resistance, they cannot win. And this is also true about Israel. So the only thing Israel can do, and it does that very, very well, is killing unarmed people in great numbers. Israel excels at genocide, ethnic cleansing, destruction of cities, destruction of cultures, destruction of societies. This is what they specialize in. This is the new Sparta, as they call it. That's a service they offer the United States. The United States needs chaos, because both Israel and the United States exist from selling arms and selling protections. They are the local mafiosi. Israel is the local mafiosi, and Trump is the chief mafioso. And they are actually selling a protection racket. Yeah, pay me, and I will not break your head. Pay me, and I will destroy your enemies. It's like a mafia, but 1,000 times bigger, or 1,000,000 times bigger. And both of those make money from death, from destruction, from murder. This is their existence, and always was since the Second World War. It wasn't always what the Americans did, but mostly they did that. They did it in the Far East, they did it in Mexico, they did it in Latin America. They are specialists of destruction. And in that sense, Israel is an extension of the empire. So, first of all, Israel is the dog of the master, but that dog, for the first time, can actually drive the master. Trump didn't necessarily want to go to war. Netanyahu is trying to start a war against Iran for the last 32 years. This is his life project. And no American president before Trump was idiotic enough to be tempted into this. But Trump has been tempted into this, either tempted or pressurized. I'm not privy to the White House, and I don't hear what they say. But I have, an impression, and I'm not alone, that Netanyahu holds something on Trump. It might be an Epstein file or 100 Epstein files. That's very likely. Or it might be something else. But Netanyahu has control over Trump in a way that we cannot explain by what is visible. Yeah, what is visible is this is a big empire. Israel is a small country. Israel should do what the Americans say, and actually the opposite happens. So we need to explain it, and we haven't got all the facts, but we can presume what the facts are. And if it seems that Israel has lured Trump into the war, I think we can presume that they have something on him. Personally, I don't mean politically, but personally. So Israel, Netanyahu, by the way, if there was an election today, would not win that election. He would lose, and he will probably go to jail because there's so many accusations against him that were now going on for a decade, more than a decade, that he will end up in, he will end up his life in jail. So yes, he cannot afford for the war to end. He will fight one war after another. They're now planning a war against Egypt, against Saudi Arabia, and against Turkey, and even against Pakistan, mad that they are. So I think that's the story of Netanyahu, very simplified. He needs a war, and if there isn't one, he will start one. And that's what he's done in Lebanon. And he's done the war in Lebanon so that the Americans cannot end the war against Iran. And you know what? He's winning. They cannot end the war against Iran because of what I described before. It's a forever war that they have got themselves in. It's an illegal war, it's an immoral war, it's an idiotic war, it's a criminal war. But more important than anything, they cannot end it because they have put themselves in the hands of Netanyahu, and now they are trapped.
So, and what will happen to right now to Gaza and to West Bank? Because we have, as I told you before, they have been both forgotten, and it's being continued, the problem there, with the IDF doing whatever it wants. And you are a specialist on IDF, and you will describe us. Your book is you're writing in your book very, very well that IDF is an ideology. It is not just an army. And it has committed many, many crimes, and it is still committing crimes, unpunished crimes right now in Gaza. So what will happen over there? And which is the role of IDF? And what about West Bank at this point? The Palestinian issue is a lost one, finally?
Well, Joanna, I cannot see the future, neither can you, but we can make predictions and hope that they are accurate. Trump fooled himself. I don't think he fooled many other people by believing that if he will inflate himself, now he's Jesus Christ, before he was the man that brings peace to humanity, ending wars that didn't exist and so on. He ended between 8 and 25 wars, depending which day he's speaking about this nonsense. So we are now seeing Gaza that has a board of peace with very important people that have never met and are not likely to meet and are not likely to do anything apart from eating sandwiches if they are ever to meet. This board of peace is a board of war. In other words, it's there to make sure that Israel can continue the genocide, the ethnic cleansing, the starvation, the denial of medicine. Now, Gaza doesn't exist. It's totally destroyed. 2 million people or more are living in an area that cannot hold life. It cannot hold life because Israel made sure of that by destroying it with the force of 10 nuclear bombs the size that were dropped on Hiroshima. This has never happened before. In the whole year of the Blitz in London, less than one nuclear device was dropped, the equivalent of less than one nuclear device. On Gaza, they have now dropped between 9 and 10 nuclear devices equivalent. And we can see, not just in the number of people dead, but in the total destruction. So not a single house was actually rebuilt. The Israelis won't allow that. The Americans won't allow that. They gave their projection of lies, like the new Gaza they're going to build with hotels and casinos and some idiots, of course, believe this nonsense. But most of humanity knows that this is just the dreams of Trump. And like all the dreams of Trump are not connected to reality. So the people of Gaza have nothing to hold them alive apart from their humanity. And their humanity was abandoned by the wider humanity. The 9 billion people that should have supported Gaza have not done so. The West has done all they could to kill the people of Gaza. They've done all they could to support the genocide, to arm it, to finance it, to give it political backwind. And BRICS and the countries related to it have done very little, or I say nothing. Europe, which is a terrible place right now, the EU has done nothing to help the Palestinians, less than nothing. They actually supported. You are coming from Greece. Greece is one of the worst countries in this respect because it is supporting Israel lock, stock, and barrel, and is planning, together with Israel, an attack in Cyprus against the Turkish part of Cyprus. So I think what we can say about humanity is better not said. And the Palestinians expected help from the rest of humans and did not get it. And this is not like the Holocaust that happened secretly in places that people didn't know about, and even most Germans didn't know about. It was a very well-kept secret. There was nothing secret about what happened in Gaza. I know what I'm saying is not nice, but I'm talking about something which is not nice at all, and that is the greatest test of humanity in our lifetime was a failure. Humanity failed the test of Gaza. Humanity failed the test of Gaza because it did nothing to stop it. So it's not just a question of Israel. Israel is a terrible country. Israel is a murderous country. It's a genocidal country. It's a state that should not exist. And I'm sure that it will not exist for very much longer, because a state that commits genocide is not normal, is not human, and shouldn't be there. So I think Zionism is on the way out. But the system that supported Zionism and still does is not on the way out as fast as Zionism. It is declining. It is going out of fashion, but it's still strong enough, look at America, to destroy us all. So I think Gaza is a metaphor of humanity.
Mr. Bresheeth, in 2 minutes, this Zoom will end, and we have to enter to the second link I just sent you. And while it will stop, then you will also enter to the next one. So we have only 3 minutes. And in these 3 minutes, please, if you want, you can inform me if you are writing a new book right now, which until the Zoom ends.
I'm working on 3 new books. One of them is a novel about the 1950s in Israel, which is finished, and I'm now working on publishing. A new version of my book in Army Like No Other is going to appear later this year, including new material on the war in the Gaza genocide and the war against Iran and the Middle East. It's not just Iran; it's Lebanon, it's Syria, it's so this is a new book that will come out later this year. Also, a new book which is finished. That will come out in 27 about the developments of Zionism until 1948. In other words, the beginning until 1948. And the newest book, which I just started, is about Israel as the chaos engine of the West, which is what I talked about a bit. And that is describing, 77 years of Israel as a chaos engine.
So you are, you never stop. You're unstoppable. You work a lot.
Well, I work because I'm not very healthy, and I want to end I need to work hard to end my work before I end myself. So yes, I have to work hard.
I'm sorry to hear that. This is very important that you are the son of Holocaust survivors, and that you are having this position and you analyze things like that for contemporary Israel and its goals. And about your book, you wrote about the IDF. So it's very important that right now you have worked on the new edition of the book An Army Like No Other for IDF. And I wanted to ask you, why do you believe that IDF is so important for the Israeli society? And why it's not just an army, it's an ideology? And which is the role that is playing right now in Gaza? Because I read last night, for example, reports from Gaza that it was just for no reason targeting young children, Palestinian children who were waiting in a queue for some food. And they were playing the IDF soldiers by shooting the children. So what is happening with these people who are going and being soldiers in IDF? Is it a mental problem, a psychological problem, or it is an ideology, a strategy? If they are being educated to do and to behave like that, like not, a tactical army, but like, I don't know, a gang that is killing children, for example.
Well, first of all, in order to do a genocide, normally you need a state to turn the enemy that you want to genocide into subhuman. That's what the Nazis have done. They've turned a whole group of nations, the Slavs, the Jews, the Roma people, into subhumans by legislation, by propaganda, by conditions, of course, putting them into camps and so on. And once you turn your enemy into a subhuman, you can do what you like with them. The Israelis have spent the last 80 years or so turning the Palestinians into subhumans. And they succeeded because the rest of humanity did nothing to stop them. Like, humanity did nothing to stop Hitler in time before he killed something like 20 million Europeans, including 6 million Jews in the Holocaust. So it depends on the rest of humanity, your ability to turn your enemy into subhumans. If the rest of humanity stands up, like we did in the case of South Africa, and said, no, we don't believe that black people in South Africa are subhumans, and we will not support you, and we will fight you. That worked. People didn't do that for Palestine in big numbers. So that's one thing. The Israelis are very good at propaganda, like the Nazis were before them. So they propagate not just other people, like people in the West, but they propagate the Israelis themselves and Jews outside of Israel. And they're very successful in that. And the whole West is supporting what they're doing. I was arrested like 3,000 other people in Britain for supporting the rights of Palestinians. So supporting the rights of other humans, according to international law, now is illegal in Europe, as you know. So I think this is part of the turning the Palestinians into subhumans. Now, I would want to end by saying that Israel is not a normal state. It never was. It was created by a war and by an army that was created in that war in 1948. So Israel is the creation of the army, and normally a state creates an army, yeah? In the case of Israel, it's the army that created the states. It's the army that is holding the state together. More than half of the Israelis are against Netanyahu. So in all other countries, he would be removed, like Orban was removed yesterday in Greece, in Hungary. Yeah? And like Trump will be removed because the Americans are now against him. But this is different in Israel. In Israel, the army is running the state. And that means that the army originally was what became the state. Israelis all went to the army in 1948, all men and most women. So the army was very large. It was almost 130,000 people on a population of 600,000. Can you imagine a quarter of a country being the army in the United States? That would mean that 80 million people will be in the army. So this is nonsensical. But that's what the situation was in 1948 in the newly created Israel. So also the army is the biggest club in the country, if you want, because everyone belongs to it, at least on paper. This is like the biggest institution, the richest institution, and the most far-reaching institution in the country. It's ideological, so it is a bit like either the Red Army in the Second World War or Hitler's army. Both of those were ideological armies. In other countries, the ideology is there, but it's not visible in every soldier. In Israel, every soldier has to buy into the ideology. Every man has to go through this experience. It's not a choice. What we see in Israel is an army indeed like no other that we can point out to. Because, for example, the American army is quite ideological, but it's very small compared to the Israeli army. It's actually smaller at the moment. Now, can you imagine that a country with 9 million citizens has a bigger army than a country with 350 million? It makes no sense. The Israeli army is bigger than the French army. It's bigger than the British army. These are large countries, very rich countries. And the army is financed by the Americans. So all these things are totally unusual. And the last thing I want to say about it is the army is the only institution which is supported by all Israelis. Otherwise, they are divided about half and half between what they called left, which is really right, and what they call right, which is really fascist or neo-Nazi. So that's the division in the Israeli society. And these divisions are real, but because these half and half are actually different classes in a sense, different in outlook and different in finance and occupation and so on. But both of those camps support the army as the meeting point of the society, so that the army is the only place where Israelis agree and meet.
So the army is Israel, finally.
Definitely.
Yeah. So it is.
That's the way to look at it.
And there is no hope for the demilitarization of Israel, because this is something in the DNA of Israel then to be synonymous to its army, to IDF. So there is no hope then for peace in Middle East. And
I'm not a biologist, so I'm not talking about the DNA, but something very similar. As a Marxist, I know that people are not what they say they are, but what they do. If you do genocide, it doesn't matter what you say, you're a genocider, yeah? You're a murderer, you're a mass murderer, and you break international law and the most important law in the book. So Israelis are what they're doing and what they have done since 1948. And therefore, if you want to call it DNA, it's accurate enough because it's there at the point of their creation, of their origination. So if that's what you do, and you will continue to do it, because that is how you make your living. You make your living by, there is a famous Brecht play about a woman called Mother Courage, and that's the name of the play. And Mother Courage makes a living from the troops, from the war. She lives on war, like, the birds of prey that live on corpses. That's what the Israelis are. They are living on corpses. They are living on death and destruction. So if this is what you do, that's what you become. You cannot change it unless you change what you do. And that's very, very difficult especially for those who live on corpses. So I don't see that Zionism will allow peace, not just in Israel and Palestine, but anywhere in the Middle East or anywhere in East Asia, because now they are attacking Iran, which is, more than 2,000 kilometers away from Israel. Normally, what business have they got in Iran? Yeah. So they're not just attacking all the countries around them and have done for 80 years, but they're attacking countries that are thousands of miles away from them. And now they want to attack Turkey and Saudi Arabia, that again are, very, very far. But there is nothing too far for Israel to attack. So there can't be peace with Zionism like there couldn't be peace with Hitlerism. You have to finish it. Not the people, but the ideology, the practices, the legislation, the institutions have to go.
But the polls show that in Israel, the people are against any negotiations with Iran. They want the war to be continued with Iran until Iran is finished. So it seems that there is no hope, because the Israeli society is a militaristic one ideologically, and does not want the war to end. They want to continue it. Until when? This is the question. And how will be Middle East after these wars? So bottom line says that the wars will continue till when, Mr. Bresheeth?
The wars will continue until Zionism is finished. And Zionism will finish itself, hopefully with help from other people around the world. As long as South Africa had apartheid, it could not live in peace, not just with its own black people, but with any other African country. You're probably too young to remember, but South Africa was involved in wars with all its neighbors, wars that sometimes lasted 20 years. So Israel is the same thing, until apartheid is finished. In the case of Israel, this apartheid is called Zionism. It is a racist, supremacist ideology that doesn't allow Israel to live like a normal country, because it is a racist apartheid state. So until Zionism is finished, there will be no change. Now, Zionism can be finished mainly by the Israeli people themselves, but they are supporting it now with almost 100%. So it has to come from outside. In the case of South Africa, the whole of humanity boycotted South Africa, and boycotted it so well that South Africa whites stood up and said, "We want to end it."
So do you
now
think
that's
that boycotting
what has to happen.
So boycotting Israel can be a solution then, the only solution right now?
Not a solution, but to bring the solution. The solution has to come from outside, in the sense, A, that the boycott has to happen, and that the boycott is not by people, which it is now, but by states. South Africa fell because it was ejected from the UN in 1975 and was not allowed back into the UN for 20 years. That's what happened. It has to happen to Israel. It has to be ejected from human society. It is not part of human society. It shouldn't be part of human society as long as it is a racist, militarized, genocidal state. This can be done. Israel is 100 times worse than South Africa under apartheid. The South Africans didn't kill people with F-35s, with 2,000-pound bombs, and they didn't do that. They didn't force starve and force expel millions of people in South Africa. This never happened. Yeah, so Israel is worse than South Africa. If it was right to remove South Africa from human society, from the club that holds society together, which is the UN, it's 100 times more justified to do this to Israel. So that's the beginning. No one should go to Israel. No one should be a tourist in Israel. No academic should go to meetings with Israel or with Israeli institutions. No one should sell or buy anything to Israel. And, you know, that combined will force Israel, like it forced South Africa before, to rejoin human society by ending apartheid, or disappear, you know, whichever, you know, if people leave Israel, it will be weakened, and people are already leaving Israel in great numbers, and it will disappear as a society just because it would break from inside. There will be not enough people to fight those wars and to do those crimes.
So you refer to Greece and the position Greece takes in the war in Gaza, and right now with the war in Iran. Greek Navy intercepted 2 Iranian missiles in the Strait of Hormuz. So we are participating in this war in favor of the United States and Israel. But I didn't got very well what you told me about Cyprus. You think that Israel with Egypt and with Greece, the alliance they are planning to attack to the Turkish part of Cyprus. What did you say about that? And which should have been the stance of Greece right now? Because we know that historically Greece was an alliance to the Palestinians and was supporting the Palestinians and the goal of a Palestinian state.
That was before you were born, my dear, not recently. And Greece has been a close partner of Israel in the last few decades. Greece is holding military maneuvers with Israel every year, a number of times. And they both consider Turkey as an enemy, though Greece and Turkey are part of NATO, as we know. So this is very odd, what is happening between Greece and Turkey. We know that Cyprus is a bit like Palestine. It wasn't divided by the UN, it was divided by the war during the 50s and 60s, and last time 63. But there was a chance of bringing peace to Greece a number of times, and you would remember that, especially in the early 2000s, and I was involved myself in some of those discussions in 2003 and 2004, and I was in Cyprus a number of times for that. So there was a hope that by negotiating between Cyprus and by definition between the Greek part of Cyprus and the Turkish part of Cyprus, by definition, you involve Turkey and Greece because they stand behind those two parts. Yeah, but actually, the Greek government in 2003 and 4 were more open-minded than the Greek Cypriot politicians. You probably know this. So it didn't work because the Greek Cypriots said, no, we're not going to sign an agreement. And that is quite terrible, I think, a mistake. A chance to resolve this was very important and needed to be grasped and wasn't grasped.
So which
now
would
Israel
be
is
the
using
solution? Sorry to interrupt that. Which would be the solution? Because of course at the beginning we accept that there was an invasion by the Turks to the island.
Yeah, it was an invasion by Turks, and they also brought settlers like the Israelis.
Exactly.
But there was a possibility of resolving this by allowing people to go back to their houses. There is a Greek city in the east of the island, which is actually locked up in a sense, because the UN has come to an arrangement about it. There are all kind of problems that can be resolved by saying, okay, let's now say that Greek people and Turkish people can go back to their homes, and it won't happen in 100% of the cases because some of those homes were destroyed. But where the homes do exist, can we agree that both sides allow this to happen? Now, both sides can allow this to happen. And that was the agreement very close to in 2003 and 4. The Greek side said no. That can happen
now,
again.
Where are we now? Where are we now considering the alliance of Cyprus, Greece, and Israel, for example? Where are we standing right now?
Well, it's not just the three countries you have mentioned. Britain has a huge base in Akrotiri on Cyprus. That base is used by the Americans and the Israelis all the time. Actually, the Israelis attacked this base in false flag attack during the Iran war, pretending to be Iranians sending a missile to Akrotiri. And Akrotiri was, you probably know, it was cleared from personnel and didn't work for a while because of this attack. But that attack apparently came from Israel in order to complicate the situation about Akrotiri.
How can we confirm? Sorry to interrupt, but how can we confirm that? It's very logical that it was not from the Iranians, and the Iranians said it was not from us. But how can we confirm that these missiles to Cyprus and also to Turkey, which is totally absurd, are coming from Israel?
Well, we can't confirm, for example, that Trump is mad, but we all know it. So there are all kind of things that we will not confirm because the criminals would not admit, yes, we have done that. Do you think the Israelis are going to admit it? But, this is reports by other countries, including Britain and the United States, that their intelligence services have identified the source of the missile that struck Akrotiri. So you won't get a confirmation like in court when somebody will stand up and say, yes, I have done it and I knew that it's illegal, but I was still going to do it. No, you won't get that. But we have the information, and it's very logical that a missile that came from the direction of Israel was not sent by the Iranians and definitely not by the Turks. And the last thing the Turks want to do is to create this. So Turkey is actually very carefully balanced between the sides. For example, Turkey is still the source of Azerbaijani oil to Israel. Without Turkey, Israel would not have any oil. So Turkey is continuing to support Israel as part of NATO and as part of its own calculations. But Israel, in Hebrew, you can read every day people in the Knesset, the members of parliament, saying we should attack Turkey because southern Turkey is part of Greater Israel. Now, they really are mad enough to consider this. And if you think for a moment that Israel will not do something because it's mad, then you are taking a very big risk, because everything that they have done until now is actually illogical. To attack Iran was illogical. And Israel has organized this. The United States for many, many years heard Netanyahu He spoke in Congress 7 times, I think. He tried to act against the agreement that President Obama has crafted for. They worked for a year on this agreement that Obama has insisted on instead of going to war, because he didn't want to go to war. So there was, every other president apart from Trump refused to go to war, and Trump agreed to go to war. So these things are really done behind the scenes. Yeah, behind the scenes, by the way, Obama continued to attack Iran after signing an agreement. And the agreement said that the Iranian money held by the United States will be given back to Iran, because this is international law. You can't take people's money just because you don't like them. Yes. Obama didn't give them the money. So even when an agreement was signed with Iran, it was not, even by Obama, that was like the only one that signed an agreement with Iran. So I think the complications in the Middle East are severe. There is what we see, and there is what we do not see, and what we do not see is more important.
So can you foresee that Greece will participate fully and directly to the war with Iran if we will see an escalation? The first question. And the second question is, can we see also in the forthcoming period a war between Israel and Turkey? Because also the Turkish media are discussing it, about the war between Turkey and Israel.
Sure, they are discussing it, because the Israelis are speaking about it as the next war. Now, first, your question about Greece. Can Greece join Israel in a war? Yes. I wouldn't say, for example, I have very little time for Keir Starmer in Britain. I think he's a terrible leader. He's a criminal. He's a war criminal. He is against human rights in the United Kingdom. 3,100 people were arrested for supporting Palestine. This is again, actually, the highest court in the land said this was unlawful. That's how they described it, unlawful.
You spent the night in
still
jail.
Continue. So
when you were arrested, you spent the night in jail, I read.
Well, this is not terrible. I'm not a terrorist, so I didn't think that I should suffer. But, because I was in jail and wasn't given the right to take my medications, I then suffered a heart failure. So, there are results of these things. They're not just simply happening. But the point is, this is not Gaza. I mean, we don't suffer in any way resembling the suffering of the Palestinians. We will suffer to support them. Yeah, every time we want to support them in Europe, including in Greece, including in all the EU countries, we will suffer, we will be arrested, we will be charged in courts. And in France now, even saying that Israel is criticizing Israel in any way is anti-Semitic, and people will go to jail. This is terrible. This is the signs of decline of Europe, the signs of decline of the EU. But we were talking about Greece. Greece has not done what Keir Starmer has done. Keir Starmer said, we will not join an illegal war against Iran. At least he did that. Yes, now, of course, he's lying, because Britain is supporting the war against Iran. It sent a warship to the area. It is allowing American aircraft to carry weapons to Israel and so on from Britain. And that happens also with Athens. So Athens didn't come and say, we will not support the war against Iran, as far as I know. I mean, you can correct me. So I don't see that it's impossible, if this war continues for years, which I think it might, impossible for Greece to partake in it, because Greece is one of the most intimate, probably after the United States, it's the closest partner of Israel in the region.
Oh, so you foresee, first of all, the participation of Greece, the full participation of Greece in a war that will run for years with Iran. And then you foresee a new front open between Israel and Turkey, a new war front there. So we will see a total chaos in Middle East, and with many, many participants. And I have to repeat that you are also teaching at the School of Oriental and African Studies, and you are an emeritus academic of the University of East London. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'll have to correct you on two things, though, that you put in my mouth, because I didn't say them. I didn't say that Greece will fight beside Israel against Iran. What you asked me about is it possible in the future that this will happen? And I say, yes, it is possible. It's also possible and maybe likely that if Israel is left to its own devices, it will attack Turkey. And the Turks are taking this seriously. And I'm very happy that they do, and they will not be surprised if it happened, and they will be ready for it. Turkey is a very strong country militarily, and this will not be a walk in the park for Israel. But that's not a reason for them not to try it. Iran is not a walk in the park for Israel. Israel is suffering during this war, and suffered quite badly. Militarily more than the civilians. The Israeli military was really hammered. The airports, the camps, the facilities in Israel suffered bombardments by missiles. So the fact that it might not be easy will not stop the Israelis. It never stopped them before. It will not stop them now. So what I'm saying is these are possible. It's not likely that Greece is looking to fight Iran. I really don't think. I give Greece more credit than wanting to be involved with Israel in Iran. But it's possible because of the Turkish angle. The Turkish angle. Israel is using in every place the two sides against each other. This is an Israeli technology of conflict. In Iran, in Syria, in Iraq, they use the Kurds against the government. They use the governments against the Kurds. In Syria, they use the Druze against the Alawites. And in the case of Cyprus, they're using the Greeks against the Turks. And they will do that everywhere. That's Israel.
In the possibility then of participation of Greece in the war with Iran, and in the possibility of the war between Israel and Turkey, then can we see also the next step to be a war between Greece and Turkey finally?
I just hope that nothing like this ever happens, because we know what happened historically, and it was a terrible shock, both to Greece and Turkey. And I think we should learn from history and not repeat the mistakes. When Israel is concerned, everything is possible, unfortunately. So I think the people in Greece have something to say about this. And I think they should say if they agree to join Israel in illegal wars or not. I don't think they should. I don't think anyone should. The American people are now 70% against the war in Iran. I don't know what the figures are in Greece. You probably do. But I think the Greek society, as a civil society, as a European society, not just any European society, but one of the oldest societies in Europe, well, the oldest in a sense, and you know, and one important historically for the identity of Europe, has a historical responsibility to stand up against this illegal and immoral and idiotic wars that divide and kill and supply money to the billionaires of the arms industry, but destroy countries, destroy societies. Yeah, I look forward to the people of Greece to say, no, we are not allowing you, our dear government, to be involved in such nonsense. It's not nonsense, it's crime. And I think I also look forward to the people in Turkey to stand up and stop Erdogan from being tempted into this. But with Israel, you know, Israel, the people of Israel support any war whatsoever. There hasn't been a war they did not support with huge numbers between 85 and 95%.
So, Professor Bresheeth, I thank you so much for this conversation. It was
Thank you.
It was a pleasure, and I hope that everything will go well with your health and with the war, the chaos in Middle East that Israel products. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I thank you.